this week's Boss Lady, we take a deeper dive into Women's History Month with a few women who are not as well known: a secret agent, an ancient queen, and a legendary superwoman known as Moses. Here's a list of the top 6 women history makers from our friends at Miss Mojo.
Number 6, Nancy Wake. Secret agent, saboteur, resistance fighter. Nancy Wake was all 3. When the Nazis invaded France in World War II, Wake was instrumental in getting people out of the country, and later served as a courier for the French resistance. Wanted by the Gestapo, who nicknamed her the White Mouse, she fled France in 1943, but parachuted back in a year later to lead a group of over 7,000 resistance fighters. Wake wasn't afraid to get her hands dirty in the line of duty, once killing a sentry with her bare hands. She led her fighters to numerous victories, even defeating a German army 22,000 strong. In fact, Wake survived the war and went on to publish a best-selling autobiography about her experiences. Number 5, Margaret Sanger. Margaret Sanger was a birth control advocate and sex educator at a time in which America's Comstock laws banned the distribution of obscene literature and articles of immoral use by male. Despite this, Sanger launched a newsletter, The Woman Rebel, to promote contraception. Its slogan, "No gods, no masters." After opening the U.S.'s first birth control clinic in 1916, she was thrown in jail. When a judge promised her a reduced sentence in exchange for respecting the law, she basically told him to shove it. Despite her conviction, the trial was instrumental in raising awareness for her cause. She went on to found what eventually became the Planned Parenthood Federation of America and is credited with popularizing the term birth control. Number 4, Boudica. We're going way back for this entry. Boudica lived in the 1st century AD, a time of great upheaval in ancient Britain. The Roman Empire occupied the region, but had struck a deal with Boudica's husband, King Prasutagus, to respect his tribe's nominal independence. When he died, however, the Romans ignored his will, flogged Boudica, and raped her daughters. In response, the Celtic queen revolted, sacking cities and driving the Romans out of Londinium, also known as London. Her efforts almost pushed the Romans out of Britain, but after regrouping, they managed to retake the city. Boudica killed herself to avoid capture or died of illness, but anyone brave enough to stand up to the Roman Empire is a badass in our books. Number 3, Harriet Tubman. It takes a special kind of person to escape a horrible situation, then willingly return to rescue others. Harriet Tubman was just such a woman. Born in 1822, she escaped from slavery in 1849, determined to have, in her own words, quote, "liberty or death." But she returned soon afterwards to free the rest of her family. Using the Underground Railroad, a network of safe houses and secret roads, she helped dozens of slaves escape to the northern US and Canada, earning her the nickname Moses. When the Civil War broke out, she worked for the Union Army as cook, nurse, spy, and scout, and later devoted herself to the women's suffrage movement. Talk about a life lived to the fullest. Number 2, Alice Paul. A disciple of Emmeline Pankhurst, who worked tirelessly to win British women the right to vote, Alice Paul helped American women do the same. In 1916, the suffragist formed the National Woman's Party, campaigning for an amendment to the Constitution that would guarantee women voting rights. The following year, she and a group known as the Silent Sentinels started picketing outside the White House to protest President Woodrow Wilson's refusal to support the amendment. They were yelled at, beaten, and many arrested. Paul herself was sent to a prison psychiatric ward, where she was force-fed raw eggs through a feeding tube. Once released, she fought on, and in 1920, at last, American women were given the vote. Before we unveil our number 1 pick, here are some honorable mentions. Number 1, Joan of Arc. A legendary leader whose life at times seemed more historical fiction than fact, Joan of Arc defied social norms to become one of history's unlikeliest heroes. Born to French peasants in the 15th century, She managed to convince King Charles VII that she should lead the French army, claiming she'd been sent by a higher power. While initially nobles and military commanders scoffed at her counsel, her leadership brought an end to the Siege of Orleans, turning the tide of the 100 Years' War. Sadly, the following year, she was captured by the English, who charged her with heresy, witchcraft, and cross-dressing and burned her at the stake. Today, she's revered as a saint and remains an iconic symbol of courage and audacity.
If you are a boss lady or you know one you think should be featured on our show, please drop me a line, Andrea at dailyflashshow.com. And if you've missed any part of Boss Lady, head to our website, dailyflashshow.com. Once you're there, look for the tab that says Boss Lady, and you'll see this segment plus all the previous segments and the previous Boss Ladies we've featured on the show. Stay with us. We're back right after this.